Hello, my name's Simone, and I'm a counselling psychologist. And if you've ever found yourself in a relationship that you would describe as toxic or a trauma bond, I would guess that one of you has had a disorganised, externalising attachment strategy. So, what does this mean? Well, people are organised into internalisers and externalisers. Not cleanly, we can flip-flop between the two sometimes, but largely internalisers, very self-reflective, take on board a lot of self-blame, and tend to ask themselves, what's my contribution? Externalisers do the opposite. They experience a lot of shame, but they tend to blame others, and they ask themselves, what have you done wrong? And they have different core wounds, but you can further organise those into internalisers and externalisers who are reactive, which is moving toward, avoidant, which is moving away, or disorganised, which is moving toward and away. Now, if you are in a relationship with someone who has created a kind of push-pull dynamic, blowing hot and cold, there's a lot of difficulty in finding a pattern. You can't remain psychologically organised with this person. Likely they have a disorganised, externalising or fragile externalising strategy. So what does that mean? At some point in that person's childhood, they would have had a caregiver who was both perhaps idealised, a source of love, comfort and connection, who was also quite harmful. And they may have been harmful because they were rejecting, blaming, criticising. They may have been harmful because they were more explicitly abusive. But either way, there is an internal dynamic in the nervous system and the psyche of the person in where they really yearn for intimacy, seek closeness. They want to be seen, heard, felt, understood. But when they are, it brings about that feeling that they can't trust it, a lot of fear and a fear of dependency, because dependency is associated with this harm. So what does this look like when you're in a relationship with this person? Well, it means that they can be very intense to begin with because they feel a lot of relief, but upon a sustained need to be consistent, it falls apart and it collapses because they feel a lot of hurt easily. They're very rejection sensitive. They're often incredibly insecure. They will collapse under perceived criticism. And I say perceived because even feedback will hit them at the level of their identity rather than the level of behaviour. So what this looks like is, you can't have a lot of problem solving with this person. They may oscillate between a lot of control and withdrawal. They struggle with accountability. They really find it hard to repair. And when there are problems in the relationship, they'll be very hurt. They will criticise because they're externalising. They will attack. They will even have contempt. And what is contempt? Contempt is criticism with scorn, disgust. It is where you are beneath consideration. It's a very dehumanizing strategy. And the Gottmans have done some research on contempt and the impact on the person on the receiving end. And they showed that contempt actually, the level of contempt you receive and the duration of contempt or that you're on the receiving end of, you can easily predict the amount of infectious diseases that you'll have over the following 4 years. So relationships actually harm your health, right? Now, this person will have contempt, they will attack, then they will withdraw, and then they will return. And they will return, but oftentimes with partial accountability, limited repair. And what this does is it leaves the person on the receiving end feeling very confused because they're often internalisers, fixers. They often see beyond that front stage behaviour. They can see and often feel the wounding of that person. And they tell themselves that if they just work harder to understand, that they can fix it. But what I will say is you cannot love someone into capacity. Now, the person who has this disorganized style, we can say that actually for them it's incredibly self-defeating, but because they have this limited capacity to self-reflect, because self-reflection requires opening the door to all of that relational shame, and they often have a deep protection of the person, the attachment figure that probably created this in the first place. They're sort of stuck in the nervous system in a place of I hurt. So this is where we associate it with a kind of borderline presentation, because the only way to shift out of that I hurt position is to create the bad guy out of you or the bad guy out of me. So that's where you get this very split presentation of I'm the problem, you're the problem, I'm the problem, you're the problem. And that's what shame drives at the level of behaviour, thought, nervous system and identity. So I hope that's explained a little bit about this dynamic. It's easy to villainize the person driving this, and where there is abuse, of course, run. Don't stay. Abuse at the level of emotion, identity and behaviour. But if you are the person who is driving this, if you are the externalizing, the fragile externalizer, then what I will say is find some self-compassion and learn about yourself. It will be through self-inquiry and safe therapy. DBT is a wonderful place to start because it will help you develop that psychological complexity where you don't have to be so black and white either or. I've worked with these types of presentations and there is definitely hope. Okay, thanks.